reason why the United States nearly faced annihilation during Napoleon's time. What if the United States had ceased to exist before it truly began? What if, amid the smoke of European conquest and colonial struggle, the flame of American liberty was nearly snuffed out, not by civil war, but by forces beyond the Atlantic? In the early 1800s, while Napoleon's armies thundered across Europe, the young American Republic stood at a dangerous crossroads. Besieged from the sea, undermined from within, and shadowed by imperial ambition, the U.S. was nearly erased from the world map. This is the story of how America, fragile and divided, survived one of its greatest existential threats, the War of 1812. As the 19th century dawned, the world was aflame with revolution. France, once a monarchy, had exploded in revolution and then been swept under the iron hand of Napoleon Bonaparte. His empire stretched across Europe, challenging the old order and igniting war after war. Across the ocean, the United States watched with caution and growing anxiety. Though officially neutral, America was caught in a global clash of titans. Great Britain, ruler of the seas, had declared economic warfare on Napoleonic France, blockading ports and disrupting trade. In turn, Napoleon retaliated, unleashing his continental system to strangle Britain's commerce. Caught between these juggernauts, American merchant ships became pawns in a deadly chess match. British warships stopped and searched them. Worse still, American sailors were abducted, forced into service aboard British vessels, a practice known as impressment. To many Americans, it was intolerable, an affront to sovereignty, a humiliation. But maritime offenses weren't the only wound. On the western frontier, Native American nations resisted the unrelenting push of American settlers. In the Ohio Valley and beyond, a confederation led by the brilliant Shawnee chief Tecumseh emerged to resist American expansion. His vision was bold: unite the tribes into a single force, capable of stopping the loss of their ancestral lands. Behind Tecumseh, in the shadows, stood another power: Great Britain. From Canada, British agents supplied weapons and encouragement. To American eyes, it was British meddling all over again, reminiscent of colonial domination. In Congress, a new generation of leaders rose: the War Hawks, Henry Clay, John C. Calhoun. Young, fiery, determined. They demanded action. They demanded honor. And so, in June 1812, with the embers of resentment stoked into flame, President James Madison declared war on Great Britain. It was America's first war as a nation. But the country was not ready. What followed was chaos. The invasion of Canada, seen by some Americans as a quick and easy conquest, turned into humiliation. General William Hull surrendered Detroit without a fight. American forces faltered again at Queenston Heights. Canada, far from welcoming U.S. troops, stood defiant. On the high seas, the story was mixed. Though the Royal Navy ruled the oceans, a few American frigates, like the USS Constitution, struck surprising blows, earning awe and boosting morale. But Britain's answer was swift and brutal: a blockade of the American coast that choked trade and drained the treasury. In 1813, tragedy struck at the Battle of the River Raisin in Michigan. After an American defeat, native allies of the British massacred wounded prisoners. The rallying cry echoed through the nation: "Remember the Raisin." Still, hope flickered. That same year, Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry won a decisive naval victory on Lake Erie. His message became legend: "We have met the enemy, and they are ours." The triumph allowed General William Henry Harrison to retake Detroit and push deeper into Canadian territory. Yet the tide of war had not turned. Then, in 1814, disaster loomed. Napoleon fell in Europe. With the emperor exiled to Elba, Britain turned its full attention west. Veteran troops, battle-hardened from European campaigns, were dispatched to America. The war was about to escalate. In August, British forces landed in the Chesapeake. At Bladensburg, they routed an American defense and marched on the capital. Washington, the young symbol of the Republic, was set ablaze. The Capitol, the Treasury, even the President's house, now known as the White House, engulfed in flames. But in the smoke rose a new symbol. First Lady Dolly Madison, refusing to flee, saved precious documents and a portrait of George Washington. Amid the ruin, her courage became a beacon of resistance. Then came Baltimore. British ships bombarded Fort McHenry through the night, and yet, at dawn, the American flag still flew. That moment inspired a young lawyer, Francis Scott Key, to write a poem that became the national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner. Even as fire rained from the skies, the spirit of the Republic refused to break. In the north, American forces turned the tide at the Battle of Plattsburgh on Lake Champlain. The British advance was halted, and peace talks intensified in Ghent, Belgium. But news traveled slowly, and so, unaware that a treaty had been signed, British forces launched one final invasion, this time targeting the vital port of New Orleans. There, waiting for them, was General Andrew Jackson. A lawyer, duelist, and fierce defender of the frontier, Jackson rallied a ragtag force of militia, free black soldiers, Choctaw warriors, and even pirates. On January 8, 1815, under the Louisiana sun, the Battle of New Orleans began. The British charged straight into prepared American lines and were slaughtered. Over 2,000 casualties in under an hour. Jackson lost fewer than 100 men. Though fought after peace had been declared, the battle became myth, a symbol, proof that the United States would not go quietly. The War of 1812 ended in a draw on paper, but it was something more for the American soul. It proved the Republic could survive the onslaught of empire, that the experiment of 1776 could withstand fire and invasion, that honor, sovereignty, and liberty were worth defending, even when the odds seemed impossible. The flames that licked the Capitol, the cannon smoke over Fort McHenry, the muddy trenches of New Orleans, these became part of the nation's story, a second war for independence, a trial by fire. From the ashes of war, a new sense of identity began to take root. The United States had not conquered vast territories, nor had it won a clear-cut military victory, but it had done something more profound. It had endured. The very fact that a fledgling republic had stood its ground against the world's most powerful empire gave Americans a newfound confidence. For the first time, the people of the United States began to see themselves not merely as former colonists or scattered states, but as a unified nation with a shared destiny. The war forged heroes and legends. Andrew Jackson, once a frontier general, emerged as a national icon. His defiance at New Orleans would catapult him to the presidency and help shape the rough populist spirit of American democracy in the decades to come. Meanwhile, the memory of Dolly Madison's courage, Perry's bold words, and Key's anthem bound the people together through story, song, and symbol. In a world dominated by empires and monarchs, America's survival proved that democracy could defend itself, not just with ideals, but with resolve. And today we must ask, in our own age, what does it take for a nation to endure? Is survival itself the triumph?